RoadGlideSully here, checking in from the once independent Lone Star State. So I wanted to do another follow-up on the Cellar Management Series that I'm doing and just kind of keep you guys up to date on a couple of things. First of all, when I did the second video in the series where I talked about the experiment that we're going to kick off on May 1st, I left something out that I thought was important. I did talk about all of the variables that we can control, but when I talked about the experiment, I left out temperature. While we are going to try to control the levels of oxygen in our samples, and if you remember, we're going to do one that is vacuum sealed, one that is jarred and left sealed, and then one that is opened on a regular basis. That was only one of the variables, or two of the variables, that I discussed in that video, and I forgot to mention on the experiment portion that I'm also going to try to control the temperature variable. I'm not going to go over the top in terms of how I'm going to control it, but I am going to do two sample sets. I'm going to do one in my garage, which will have wide temperature swings, and then I'm going to do another one inside my house, which will be a fairly constant temperature all year long. So that should tell me a little bit more about, probably more so the heat than the cold, because I'm in Texas, but that'll tell me a little bit more about what the heat does to a tobacco under all three of those conditions. So I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew that that was going to happen, and feel free to do that with your experiment as well. I've had a couple of folks in the comments mention that they're interested in doing it and maybe even interested in pairing up with other folks. So what I would ask you to do, if you don't know a lot of folks or you don't know anybody else that wants to participate, is drop me a note at RoadGlideSully@gmail.com. and I'll keep a list of people that are interested in doing it, and see if I can pair some folks up so that they can share samples after the 1 year period. So no worry about ETA on when to do that. We've got a year before we have to do the samples. So feel free to drop me a note. Let me know that you're interested in doing it but don't have anybody to share the experience with, and I'll see if I can pair folks up for the sample sharing at the end of the experiment, which will be May 1st, 2020. And again, this is only going to be a 1 year experiment. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit is, I think Yanez, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, so I apologize, from Pipes Tobak. He did a video where he talked a little bit about cellar management, and I think he's got some ideas, and he was asking whether or not we wanted to hear some of those ideas. And the answer to that, from my perspective, is yes. And I'll tell you why. He mentioned in his video that there are a number of ways to approach a cellar. And what I talked about in my original Cellar Management Series was intended to just kind of get the conversation going and get maybe some ideas for folks that are like me, fairly new smokers. So I would really like to hear from smokers that have smoked pipes for many years and already have a well-established cellar, because I think we can learn probably a lot more from those folks on what works, what doesn't work, their approach, that kind of thing. So Yanez, I would love to hear your thoughts on the subject. I agree wholeheartedly. There's not one way to go about this, and what I'd like to see the YTPC in general talk more about is how to go about it, different ways to go about it, because I think there's probably going to be a way that fits for your buying habits, your your bank account. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that are in play with how you build your cellar over time. So I would love to hear more from you. I hope you do a VR on the topic, and I will keep my eyes open and wait for it. The last thing I wanted to talk about is maybe another way of growing your cellar. So, as you know, I travel quite a bit for work. Not not a lot, but I do find myself in cities that are new to me. And usually, if I can find any extra time, I try to find a B&M shop and stop by and see what they have. Well, I did that yesterday. I was in San Diego. Sorry, Onion, it was a quick trip. I knew it wasn't going to work for you in terms of us getting together because it was during the week and I know you had to work. But I was in San Diego, and after my meetings had finished for the day, I had a late flight. In fact, it was a very late flight. I didn't get home until 4 o'clock this morning. But I had some time between work and my flight, so I took an Uber to a place called Racine and Laramie Tobacconist in San Diego. This is actually part of a state park. It's located not too far from the airport, which was convenient, and I was able to pick up some interesting tobaccos, including a Dunhill Deluxe Navy Roll from 2011 and a Royal Yacht from 2017. So that's another way to grow your cellar, is stop by these B&Ms, see what they have, especially if they're smaller B&Ms. They might give you an opportunity to grow your cellar in a different way instead of, you know, just sitting back on it and waiting for the time. So that's all I got. Hopefully we'll be doing more on the cellar management. I like the topic. I like the idea of continuing the series. And I'd love the idea for you guys to post more VRs. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So I'll look forward to seeing some of those videos. And until then, I am RoadGlideSully. Keep the rubber side down.